No, this is not about cleanliness. I need you to hear that first because the second someone says, clean your room, your brain goes, okay, mom, and you just tune it out. And that's not what this is. This is about what a messy room is actually doing to your head, what it tells your brain about who you are right now, whether you realize it or not. Because there's something happening in that environment that goes way deeper than dishes in the sink and clothes on the floor. And I think once you actually understand it, and not just hear it, but actually understand it, you'll want to do something. So here's what's going on. Your brain is constantly reading your environment. Like constantly. Not in a dramatic way, just quietly in the background, all day. It's taking information about where you are and using it to figure out what mode to be in. And a chaotic environment sends a very specific signal that says, things here are out of control. Nobody's on top of it. This is not a place where serious things happen. That's not me being dramatic. That's genuinely the message your brain receives. When you wake up every morning in a room with a week's worth of clothes on the floor, random stuff on every surface, trash you keep meaning to take out, dishes that you've been ignoring, your brain scans all of that before you've even had a single thought, and it decides, we're not in good shape today. And then you wonder why it's hard to start anything. Think about it like this. You ever walk into a space that was just like clean and organized, a hotel room maybe, someone else's house, and you notice how you feel different in that space? Not like, whoa, this is amazing, just kind of like, oh, okay, I can think in here. There's room to breathe. That feeling is real. That's not interior design being fancy. It's your nervous system settling down because the environment around you is telling you things are fine, things are handled, you can focus. Now, compare that to how you feel sitting in a room when it's a wreck. Same person, same brain, completely different mental state just because of what's around you. And so, here's the part that I actually want to talk about. Your room isn't a reflection of where you're at. It starts to become the reason you stay there. Because here's what happens. Your room gets messy. Fine. Life gets busy. Whatever. But then it stays messy. And the longer it stays that way, the more your brain starts to accept it as normal, as just how things are. And then acceptance bleeds into everything else. Not dramatically and not overnight, but slowly and gradually. And I really mean gradually. Like, you're not going to notice this happening. But the standard you hold yourself to in every other area of life will start to loosen a little. You skip the gym once, fine. You eat bad for a couple days, it's fine. You stop doing the small things that keep your routine together, none of it feels connected. But it is. It all comes from the same place. When your environment says you're not on top of things, it becomes easier to act like someone who isn't on top of things. It's just how humans respond to their surroundings. I'll tell you something I noticed about myself. There was a recent time, maybe a couple weeks ago, where I just kind of felt off. And like, not dramatically, just off. Nothing was just clicking in the way I wanted it to. I couldn't keep myself in the gym. I couldn't eat right. I couldn't hang out with my friends. You want to know what the problem was? My room was always a mess. Like, always. And I'm not saying that the mess caused all this, but because the mess was part of the same pattern, everything was a little neglected. Everything was a little behind. And the room was just the most visible version of that. And every time things started coming back together, gym back on, better sleep, actually being productive, the room got cleaned first. Not always intentionally, just as a part of the shift. The room is like a scoreboard. You look at it and you know exactly where you're at right now. So what do you actually do? And I'll say the same thing I always say. I'm not going to give you an extreme system. I always think that's silly. Telling someone whose room is destroyed to deep clean everything and organize by color is asking them to fail. Start with one thing. Just one. Not everything. One. Make your bed. That's it. That's the whole first step. I know, it sounds like nothing, but here's why it matters. Making your bed is the first decision you make in your day where you did something intentional. You woke up and you chose to do something. It takes 2 minutes, and your brain registers it. There's a small signal you send yourself that says, I'm the kind of person who does things. Not in like a cheesy affirmation way, just a tiny bit of evidence. And the evidence, stacks up. The second thing is a 10-minute sweep or vacuum. Not a clean, but like a sweep. There's a difference. A clean is what you do when guests are coming and your mom is like, please clean your room, and then, nobody comes in your room. But a sweep is just walk around your room, put things where they belong, close off the floor, clear the surfaces, take the trash out. 10 minutes, maybe less. The goal isn't perfect, the goal is functional. You want to be able to walk into your room and not immediately feel like you're losing, a little overwhelmed and bogged down. Because that feeling, that like low level sense of being behind just from looking at your own space, that's costing you something every single day. And it's so quiet, you've probably stopped noticing it. Kind of like the hum in the background of all my videos. The third thing is the one thing that actually keeps it going. Pick one thing in your room that you actually like. A lamp, a poster, your desk, anything. Keep that one thing clean and in its place, always. This sounds really random, but there's a reason it works. When you have one part of your space that's constantly good, consistently cared for, it becomes an anchor. Your brain has something to hold on to that says, this room is actually okay. And that anchor makes it way easier to let the rest follow. Because the problem with a messy room isn't that it's messy. It's that after a while, it kind of all blurs together into one big feeling of wrong. You can't see where to start. It's just overwhelming. One good corner gives you a foothold, something to maintain instead of something to fix. Here's what I want you to take from this. Your environment is not separate from who you're trying to become. It's part of it. The person you're working towards, the more focused version, the one with better habits, the one who actually follows through, that person lives in a certain kind of space. Not a perfect space, not a magazine space, but just a space that reflects that someone in control lives there. And you can build towards that person in a lot of ways. Gym, sleep, what you put in your body, how you spend your time. But the room is the easiest one, the most immediate one. The one thing you can change in 10 minutes and actually feel a difference right now. Not next week, not once you're motivated, today. There's this thing that I believe, that I keep coming back to. You get what you give in pretty much every single area of life. If you give your space some care, it gives back a little more calm, a little more focus. That feeling that says things are going in the right direction. And that feeling, even a small version of it, is enough to take the next step. Start there. Ah, yes. Finally settling into my new apartment. It's a little messy. Kind of getting stressed out. Kind of getting really stressed out. I don't know if I'm gonna...